My name is Kate Thurbin, and I'm the Program Coordinator with the Nonprofit Leadership Alliance. I'd like to welcome all of our attendees today to Being an Entrepreneur at My Y, presented by Libby Corral, the Vice President of Operations and Programs at the Valley of the Sun YMCA. Before we get started, I'd just like to mention a few things to our audience. First off, that we have our Alliance Management Institute coming up in January. We're all very excited here at the National Office and doing all the last-minute details, so we hope to see all of you there. I'd also like to mention to this group in particular what you should have on your radar for after you gain your CMP. Once you pay your one-time enrollment fee of $25 into the program, you do have an automatic one-year membership with the Association of Nonprofit Professionals. That's our alumni association group. And you get certain perks with that membership. After that 1 year, it is $35 to renew annually. But you do, as I said, receive perks and resources from being a member. One of the most beneficial, in my opinion, is access to CMP Launch, which is our premier job matching system. We put jobs in from our alliance partners, from our nonprofit partners in there. You can choose your preferences and get updates. And we're very excited to have launched just last year. Additionally, you will still have access to our webinars, although this time it won't be the student ones, it's our workforce webinars. And then our CMPs with active profiles have access to all of this. It's an awesome way we're providing the best talent to these organizations. For more information, you can go to our website or feel free to contact me if you have any questions. I will be sending a recording of this webinar to everyone registered, so you will have this information later if you want it. So just a few tips on how to make the most out of this webinar. Please feel free to ask questions throughout the presentation. There is a question box and chat box in your panel. You can type in your questions throughout the presentation, and I will ask them at the end with a Q&A with Libby. So we'd love to have you participate in those and in the survey that will come at the end. So with that, I'd like to introduce our presenter. This is Ms. Libby Corral. She is the Vice President of Operations and Programs for Valley of the Sun at YMCA, which is a recent promotion, although Libby has been with Valley of the Sun for 18 years. She's described by her superiors and coworkers as having a dynamic personality and a get-it-done attitude that has quickly propelled her through the ranks of the YMCA. Libby's described as being dedicated to developing and promoting staff, and she is very appreciated by all of her coworkers. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Libby.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for having me. We are getting ready to go on to our PowerPoint today, and the topic today is being an entrepreneur at my YMCA. A little personal history. You did get a little history a minute ago, but I started working at the YMCA in '96 and have worked in all different aspects of the Y, everything from childcare to sports to operations in one branch and then taking on multiple branches. And now I oversee 5 branches of our facility branches as well as all of our programs for 16 branches at the YMCA. So I'd be happy as we go through here. I'm going to share a lot of kind of my personal history and hopefully entice you to continue your careers in the nonprofit sector and definitely consider participating into a YMCA where you are. So when we talked about bringing this webinar on board, we were talking about being an entrepreneur, and what does that mean? And how does that relate to the nonprofit sector? Many people are getting away with getting out of their college degree and wanting to really understand, what is the next step for me and how do I forge my way into the world? And so being an entrepreneur always sounds fun because it's somebody who manages an enterprise, whether it's your own enterprise that you start up from a grassroots organization or a business. And so what I'm going to try to do today with this webinar is show you how you get to make as many choices as you would as your own business person when you work for the YMCA or any nonprofit. So an entrepreneur, as you can see here, with considerable initiative and risk. And so as we move forward throughout this webinar, we'll be talking a lot about personal initiative, personal leadership, and the risks that you have to take. One of the great things about the YMCA is that because you're a nonprofit, you're organized and supported by your community. So the business risk, the dollar risks, are not only personal. Whereas if you were to open your own storefront and do something, let's say sell or innovate a new product, that would all have to be funded either by yourself or by investors that you have. One of the great things about a nonprofit is that the community backs the nonprofit and the YMCA. So you're able to take a lot of risks and do a lot of innovation on kind of somebody else's dime. So one of the things that is really important about being a YMCA worker is you're a pioneer. You're a pioneer in new communities where we build new programs. You're also a pioneer in communities that have had a YMCA for 150 years, because the changes and the needs all are different. Every time you turn around, there can be an influx of new immigrants that require new programming. There can be issues with the school district, issues, social issues, economic issues, things like that that are really something that the YMCA has to respond to. So is that you? Are you somebody who wants to be a pioneer? Are you somebody who wants to go out into the world and be paving the way and making things different for the community, making things different for youth and families, things like that? And as you look at being a YMCA leader, you need to be creative. And it's interesting because, you know, creativity at the YMCA is very similar to being an artist, as I spoke about a few minutes ago. You know, you have to respond to the needs in the community. And as an entrepreneur, you're coming up with new ideas, new things to do, other initiatives that are important to the people that surround you and that are counting on you to provide programs and membership and social responses to issues, etc. One of the great things about working for the YMCA is that you're able to become innovative. And innovative is not only creating something new, but being innovative, responsive to community needs, as well as being innovative in your own day. You know, one of the great pieces of the YMCA, and many of you, I'm sure, know basketball. Your basketball was invented at the YMCA. It was invented on purpose because Dr. James Naismith was working with a bunch of kids and needed to keep them busy. So he basically developed this program with peach baskets and a basketball and encouraged them to be healthy and work as a team and all of that stuff. So the innovation that comes with being an entrepreneur and a leader at the YMCA, it goes from developing new programs to developing how you are going to respond to your staff, how you're going to respond to your members, and always being able to be flexible. You know, innovation is about creating, but also not only creating the product or the project that you're going to be doing, but being innovative enough to respond to the ups and downs of what's going to go on. Inspiration really goes hand in hand with all of the things we just talked about. Making sure that as you move through your career, whether it's with the YMCA, whether it's with a nonprofit, or whomever it's with, that you find something to do in your world that inspires you. And as people think about entrepreneurship, they think, how do I go out and be bigger and better and come up with something new and exciting? And all of that really comes from your own internal inspirations. And what are the things that you're looking for to be greater, to be better, etc. And how are you going to get people to be inspired with you? Because one of the things, and we'll talk about this later in the webinar, is you may have all kinds of great ideas. You may have all kinds of creativity, innovation. You may be willing to pave the way. But if you can't get other people to join in your idea and be inspired with you, then you're not going to be able to do all of the great work that you want to do. So what is it that inspires you? What do you want to do to inspire others? That's something I really want you to take a moment and think about as we go forward through this presentation. And here, I'm going to try this video, and hopefully it works. If it does not work, then we will try something else, but let's see if we can get this going. Can you hear this?
No, Libby, I don't think we really can.
Okay, we can't hear this. All right, let's see.
We're getting a lot of feedback on that.
Is that working?
Not very well, I don't think, no.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and move right past this. Then I do want you to take a look at the link that we just had. This is Kid President. And Kid President, if you go on to a lot of the different links that he has, it's a really great opportunity to see exciting, funny, fun ways to really enhance your thinking and enhance the things that your leadership style goes with out of the vision of a 9 or 10-year-old kid. So if you haven't had a chance to look at Kid President, please go on YouTube, look him up, and watch one or two of his clips because they're really cute, and they definitely bring back leadership right to the forefront of the eyes of a youth and really simplify it and dumb it down, if you will. It makes it really funny and fun, especially working in an organization that focuses on youth and families. It really brings you back to kind of the root of, hey, what's great, what's fun, what's funny, and it's a great opportunity to explore that. So please, at your leisure, get on YouTube and look up Kid President and take a look at some of his inspirations that he has. Let's move into leadership here. And this slide right here shows two different styles of leadership. And as we talk about going out and being the next best thing and creating the next best thing and how do we lead, which is it that you want to be? Do you want to be a boss? And as you can see in this slide, the guy that's sitting at the desk ordering people, or do you want to be the person that's leading the parade? That's something that is really important to think about. And often everybody knows that they want to be the leader that's leading the parade. But one of the things that we've got to make sure as a consistent almost daily activity of your own is to remind yourself that this is the leader you want to be rather than being the boss. And sometimes that's hard to do. And there's always this funny little saying of, when you're leading a parade, it's always good to look behind you every now and then and make sure the parade is still there. So it's kind of one of those funny stories of, if you think you're leading and you think that the parade is heading on down the road, if people aren't following you, then your team is really not participating in your leadership, and you've got to revisit that. Which brings us to resources. What are the resources that you have in your agency, in your community, in your job that are going to make you successful? Obviously, people are your #1 resource, and that's people across the board, from your staff, the supervisors, people you work with in other agencies, volunteers that you have, donors that you have, any of your employees, and even when we go farther down, your participants, your community members. All of those people are the people that are going to help make or break you as an entrepreneur in your position and in your daily work. So it's really important to care for them, to appreciate them, all of that. So it's also important to know your other resources, what facilities you have, what equipment, vehicles, programs, any other things that you have that might be considered resources. What are they? You know, what do you have that you can say, you know what, as I'm forging this new partnership, as I'm thinking about this new development, is this something that I can utilize as a resource? And really, in the nonprofit world, you will see, and I'm sure that you've learned in your other classes, that resources are very difficult to obtain. You know, you're on a very strict budget. You're dealing with lack of money, lack of resources. So the more, and going back to the other things that we talked about, the more creative that you are, the more innovative that you are to develop resources, to develop partnerships, things like that are really important. And so moving on to what is, as you're thinking about becoming an entrepreneur, what are the things that you need to do to have your own niche? And your niche may be in a program, it may be in a community partnership, it may be in developing something new, but what is it that you're doing for your program that makes you different? You know, and this little slide here just shows that each of these different birds have their own little niche. So for an example of your niche at the YMCA, so as you can kind of think forward, what is your niche in your own world? But an example is we need to have a safe place for children to play and get exercise. So that's the niche, right? So people are saying, hey, how do I make sure that my kid is safe and is getting exercise, because the problem in our community is childhood obesity. So what is the YMCA going to do to help us fix that and create a solution, if you will, for your community? So basically we say, hey, how is the YMCA going to do that? And we get back to our creativity. We get back to our innovation. What are the things that we can do? What do we have for facilities? What we have for staff? What are the opportunities that we have that we can benefit our program? So obviously at the YMCA, we have lots of opportunities. We have, many of our Ys have gymnasiums, they have classrooms, they have safe places. We background check all of our staff, all of our volunteers. So it's a great opportunity for the community to look to the YMCA to help fill that need. The other thing that we want to always make sure of is when you've got a community need and trying to find out what your niche is going to be to fill that need, is that you're not replicating what other organizations are doing. That's something that we've really made sure, I think in many of our communities, is to get out into the community, talk to other people. What are they doing? How are they being innovative? What creativity are they using to provide programming, to provide opportunities for the community? And let's not replicate those programs. Or, for example, everybody having an after-school program, and then you only have 100 kids that need after-school program in this community, and if you've got 10 of them and there's 10 kids at each one, that seems not to be a good use of everyone's time and energy and resources. So really being able to adapt and to specialize in programming that makes sense for you and for your community. As we talk about programming, we did talk a little bit about this a little while ago regarding assessing what the program or what the community needs for programs. It's bigger than that. When you go to community organizations, really talking to people, sending out surveys, meeting with the community leaders really is a great way to start assessing your community needs. And you ask yourself, you know, is this entrepreneurship? Absolutely. I would say it's a lot harder, in fact, to do this than it is to develop the next best widget and sell it. This is really a way that you can prove to yourself and to your community that what you're doing as an individual and as a community organization is important. So going out, meeting with people, finding out what are the needs of the community, and then going back and designing something to fit those needs, whether it's an after-school program, whether it's drowning prevention, whether it's healthy lifestyles, GED programming, ESL classes, all of those things, whatever the community needs, going back and really replicating some program that'll help fix that and fill that niche. One of the things that the YMCA is really great at is utilizing other successes across the nation to be able to replicate those. So in an organization that's a national organization such as the YMCA, you can reach out through our website to other communities that are doing similar things that you need, and you obviously will have to tweak your programs, but it is an opportunity to design a program that you don't have to start from scratch. One of the other pieces is really measuring what's going on. How are we doing? What are the numbers? We'll talk a little bit about budget implications later, but making sure that as we measure and as we evaluate, we understand that what we're doing can be tweaked. And this really reverts back to the beginning of the webinar where we talked about creativity, innovation. How did Dr. James Naismith develop basketball, and does it look the same way today as it did back then? Absolutely not. You know, we changed according to the community needs. What types of facilities did we have? We no longer obviously use peach baskets, but those kind of program designs come out, we measure our performance, we evaluate what we're doing, and then we go back to the beginning and redesign those programs, tweaking them to fill those niches that we're needing to do. When we implement programs, we just talked a little bit about this, making sure that you're willing to be flexible. It's always interesting when I have staff that go out into a community and develop program, let's say an after-school program. We put it in the school we think is going to be the biggest and best, and we bust from other sites. Often we are not right. You know, often we need to go back to that development stage and really put some modifications to it and make sure that we're willing to be flexible. One of the biggest pieces of, I think, running community programs is being flexible and responsive to community needs. So making sure you're always willing to go back into that implementation phase, go back into that design phase, and being able to change that. The next thing I want to talk about is customer service versus service. You know, when you, many of you go through this in your classes, in your jobs, in your internships, you talk about, you know, your service to others. So your service to others is obvious. Many of you, this is your degree and your plan is to work in nonprofits. So caring about other people and serving others is important. And we'll talk about kind of what that means versus customer service here in a second. This is a cute little funny, just a little comic that says, someone calling themselves a customer says they want something called service. What is that, right? What is customer service? And it's very different in every program that we offer. It's very different in every community that we're in. A good customer service experience in a very high Hispanic community would not be to deliver all of our marketing materials, all of our registration materials in English. A good customer service would be to have bilingual information, bilingual staff, things like that. When you have people that are entry-level help seekers coming into group fitness programs, bad customer service is having classes they can't take that are harder for them to participate in. So really being able to decide what your product is and what good customer service looks like. The other thing that's really important as you develop your programming is what is your brand. And it's funny here, you know, what is your brand? This cow belongs to Daryl Jones. So hands off, right? We all have a program that we are putting our brand on. And one of the very important pieces of the YMCA is that we say, you know, we can't do things that will hurt our brand. And what does that mean? You know, what does hurt your brand mean? It means if it's not in alignment with what you do, if it's not in alignment with who you are, those are the things that what your brand stands for. So I think it's really important to understand what your brand is and follow through with that. and make sure that you're on the side of your community organization. Let's talk a little bit about budgets. Now, budgets are important because it's an opportunity for you to allow yourselves to do everything that we've already talked about. You know, all of the great work that you're doing, all of the program development, the community service, the reaching out and finding community needs and addressing those community needs. All of those are fabulous things, but without the plan, without the money, without the expense reduction, the revenue generation, all of those concepts, none of that other stuff can come to fruition. It's impossible to find a nonprofit or a for-profit that just has unlimited resources. So because of that, it's important that you look at the programs and the issues that you're trying to solve in your community and develop plans for those. So as you're looking at what you're going to do and how you're going to respond to community needs, developing a plan and building that plan thoroughly is important because that will allow you to be successful. When you're looking at expenses, in order to make sure that the program is viable, you need to think of everything. And all of your expenses are beyond just what it costs to pay the staff and what it costs to do the supplies. It's really important that you take everything else into consideration as well. All of the behind the scenes. If you're in a YMCA and you're in a traditional facility YMCA with a fitness center, a child care center, a gymnasium for youth sports, if you're in those types of environments, it's really important to incorporate all of your expenses and all of your risks into that program development when you do a budget, because you do utilize the office supplies, you do utilize the electricity, the gas, the water, all of those things really feed up into expenses, because what we don't want to do, especially as a nonprofit, is to develop programs that all they can do is pay their staff, because then you get into this vicious cycle of not having any overhead covered. And if you're running in a community organization and you have free rental space at a school, it's much easier to do those grassroots programming and just be able to pay for staff and supplies. But any admin overhead, any marketing, things like that, you've got to take all of that into consideration. And one of the things that's really important in any entrepreneurial relationship with a business, whether it's a nonprofit, for-profit, your own business, etc., is to make sure that you never are in a situation that you don't have the capacity to pay for the things that you need, whether it's staff or supplies or things like that. It's really important to continue to offer programs. You have to be viable. So let's talk about outreach. And the outreach, we've talked a little bit about it in the past, about responding to community needs. But above and beyond that, outreach is the place where the YMCA or any nonprofit can come out and do things for others. As we talked about in that program development of budgets, there are some programs that you'll develop that will be a positive net. And so those positive net programs, let's say a youth sports program or even a child care program, many of those have a 20 to 30% positive net gain. Those programs that you run often are the ones that support the needy programs in your community. And so sometimes there are programs that will give you a negative net. And as long as you are aware and you're clear that that's what it's about, then those are very important to the community. Because making a profit is not what our work is. But being able to pay our bills and remember that we're a business is what our work is. So that's really important to remember. The benefits of working at the YMCA, there's tons of benefits, and I put a few of them here on this slide. We've talked about all the different programs that we have, whether it's healthy living programs, social responsibility programs, youth development programs. As a YMCA leader and as a YMCA staff person, you're able to affect and be a part of the community and work with diverse populations. You're able to impact lives of people all across your community and, in fact, all across the nation and sometimes all across the world. The YMCA is an international organization as well. So we have opportunities in other countries for people to go and serve other countries as the YMCA workers. And also, we are really focused on our staff and making sure that they are able to participate in our programs as well. Here at the Valley of the Sun, we've got a staff incentive program where all of our staff are able, all of our full-time staff are able to have family memberships for their whole family at the YMCA for free. They do get discounted rates in programs and are able to participate in a lot of the things that we offer. One of our goals for staff is to make sure that as they're reaching the community, the YMCA is also there for their families as well. So that's an important piece of that. When we think about goals and the goals that you're setting for here forward, you know, what is it that you want to be? How are you going to move forward as an employee of a nonprofit? How are we going to set goals to make you think about what you want to do, what you want to succeed, how you want to get there, and which organization to go through? It's definitely important in both your personal and your professional life to set goals that are SMART. And if you can remember this the little SMART here, S-M-A-R-T, make sure that your goals always fall under this. So whether they're goals for yourself or goals for your program, that they're specific. What exactly are we trying to achieve? How are we going to measure them? What makes it successful? If we've achieved, what's achievable? What is realistic? And what is our timeline? And I think that as we look at both personal and professional growth, utilizing that SMART goal setting is really important, because as you think about what it is you want to do in your career, in your life, it's important to be able to reflect back on all of those things. So as we look at, you know, what are my long-term goals? What is growth for me, both professionally and personally? Really thinking about that, and how do you tie those both together? One of the great opportunities about working for a nonprofit, as we've talked about before, is that you're able to intermingle kind of your personal characteristics into your professional life. So all of you on this webinar have committed yourselves to caring and kind of foraging for the betterment of others. And so knowing that that's a personal value of your own really ties in well when it's also a professional value. And that's one of the great things about the YMCA is our character values are caring, honesty, respect, and responsibility. So it's really making it so that you're able to kind of wear both hats of personal and professional at all times, really making a difference in the lives of others. One of the things that I've always stated, working for the YMCA, I've been with the Y, like I said earlier, for 18 years, and at the beginning of my career, starting out very hands-on with lots of kids. Every time you go anywhere in the community, you're not Libby Corral. You know, you're Libby from the YMCA. So really remembering that when you work for a community organization, that your personal life and your professional life, those lines are really intermingled. And there's not this, I put on the outfit, go to work from 8 to 5, and I go home, and I'm no longer part of my work life. Working for a nonprofit means that you are intermingling all of those. And back to the reason of this webinar is how do you become an entrepreneur? Is, you know, you live, eat, breathe, sweat what is important to you, and being able to work in a nonprofit that correlates with your own personal values definitely makes that easier to do. And so that brings us to, what does success look like? You know, what are you trying to get when you work for a nonprofit organization? What in the end is success for you? And so we've got a quote here from Maya Angelou that says, success is liking yourself, liking what you do, and liking how you do it. You know, when you look back on your world, and there's that poem it's called The Dash. You know, when you're born and when you die, the dash is what's important. What do you do between your birth and your death that makes you who you are? And how do you measure those successes? You know, making sure that going to work every day is something that you should really love to do. You should be able to be creative. You should be able to be innovative. You should be able to do all of the things that are important to you, making the world a better place for others, being able to look for new opportunities, and leaving behind something that is better because of what you've done. And by no stretch of the imagination do I want to lead you to believe that working for a nonprofit is always perfect and always awesome and always lovely and everything is great, because what I've told many staff in my career is if everything was easy and everything was fun, then it's called a volunteer opportunity. So having a job is because nobody's willing to do it for free, right? So you get paid to do this job, so there are hard things. There are things that we don't love to do. We don't love to balance our budgets. We don't love to deal with complaints with customer service. We've talked about that. We don't like to have angry parents. We don't like to have kids that won't listen. All of those things are hard in your day, but ultimately when you look ahead, you know, are you able to say that you've made an impact on the world and that you, on the whole, love your day and are able to be creative and innovative, etc. So that's what I would say when you're looking at measuring success. You know, these are things that you should look for in your world. And then in order to take care of others, it's really important to take care of yourself, especially in the nonprofit organizations. You know, nonprofits are open from morning till night. We care about people 7 days a week. When they're done working is when they're having fun and when they're utilizing our programs, when they're done school. So our programs are often longer than others. They're on holidays. They're over vacations. And so it's really important that knowing that ahead of time, you remember to take care of yourself. And, you know, every time you get on an airplane and they're going through the risk management issues, and they say adjust your mask before you adjust others to take care of yourself. It's the same thing in nonprofit work. Making sure that you're healthy, happy, having fun, so that your aura becomes much better and much more fun, and you're able to make an impact on others' lives. So I guess the end of my webinar, the last statement is have fun. And I think that that's one of it ties really well back into the beginning of the webinar, which says, you know, as an entrepreneur, can you be in charge of your own destiny at the YMCA or another nonprofit? And I would say absolutely. Being able to work in nonprofits allow you the flexibility to have an interesting day all the time. Nothing is ever the same. You're able to be creative, be innovative, have fun, and the end result is to really have a huge impact on your community and back to leaving a legacy. So thank you very much for having me today, and I'm open to any questions that you have, and I appreciate that. I did not leave my contact information, and I should have on one of these slides, but I'll go ahead and give you that now. My email address is LN, like Libby Nicole Corral, CORRAL, @VOS, like Valley of Sun, YMCA.org. And my direct line here at the YMCA is 602-212-6142. Hope you learned something today, and if you have any questions or would like to get in touch with me, feel free to reach out. I'm more than happy to help anyone and everyone coming up in the ranks of nonprofits. I love what I do. I love my staff and really want to continue to make an impact on the community. So I'll turn it back over to you, and we'll answer any questions.
Great. Libby, thank you for that wonderful presentation. If anyone has questions, again, you can type them into the chat or question bar. We do have a couple right here. The first one is, Libby, why did you choose to work at the YMCA?
You know, that's a great question, and it's kind of funny because I was working on my master's thesis. I wanted a part-time job, and I didn't really want anything that was, I wasn't ready for a career. So the YMCA, I had taught school for a couple years prior. The YMCA was a really great link into being able to work with kids, which I knew I was good at. And then once I got involved in the Y as a part-time staff person, it really, tied into this whole entrepreneurship. I was able to make decisions. I was able to develop new programs. I was able to impact kids without having to dish out my own personal savings to rent a facility and to develop programming from scratch. So it was a great fit for me to tie right into the YMCA and the mission. I really believed in the mission of what we do and helping kids and helping families achieve both program and membership opportunities. So it just fit in for me.
Great. And then one other question, unless we get some between now and when you finish answering this, is what is the most useful leadership strategy you have used? That's a great question. I think leadership strategy, there's a way to, you can read thousands of leadership books. You can take all kinds of different studies that say you're like this, your staff are like that. But I think the most important thing I've learned in my almost 20 years of managing staff and caring about people is that you don't have to, and I always tell my staff, I don't love you all the same. I love you all very differently. And when I say love is I think that tying in leadership and caring and looking out for people as a whole unit, not just as a front desk staff person or as a part-time child care worker, really caring about them as an individual and taking everything into consideration, whether that's they've got an issue at home, whether they've got issues at school, whether the shift is bad for them because they have a second job that keeps them out late. Really learning about my staff, understanding who they are professionally and personally, and caring about them all differently. And I'm not saying treat them differently, but caring about them how they need to be cared about and lead them how they need to be led. There are many people who need a lot of direction. There are lots of people who need zero direction. And just understanding as you're teaching your staff, as you're working with your staff, really making their work plan and making their daily plan fit them. The other thing I think is something that really has struck me for the positive is the book Strength Finders. If you don't know about that book, I suggest that highly to anyone. And what it does is it goes through a bunch of questions and it says what your strengths are. And I think that it definitely, I don't want to say that it's easy to focus on strengths and ignore your weaknesses because, like I said, it's a job, not a volunteer opportunity. So our weaknesses, we have to get it so that they meet minimum standards. So if we're not good at sentence structure and our job is to do a lot of reports, well, we have to meet minimum standards. We have to get our sentence structure in line. But we may not always be an eloquent writer, but really learning what our strengths are and what our staff strengths are and building upon those and putting them in the seat on that bus that fits them the best. So making sure that if you have somebody who is great with children and they love to be with kids, having them sitting at a computer 39 hours a week and 1 hour a week on the floor doesn't make sense. So really building upon people's strengths has been something I think works very well in leadership. Great, wonderful answer, Libby. Thank you so much. And I don't think we have any further questions. So Libby, unless you have anything else, we can end this webinar for today.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.